Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of Yomo. This is the Year of Magical Learning podcast. We are going to do episode 229, a part 4 of 5 reflections on favorite book, The Happiness Hypothesis.
Let's do this one. So this is part 4 of 5, reflection 4 of 5 of the happiness hypothesis. Just a quick recap. This is a book about 10 great ideas, and each chapter kind of builds on himself as it builds toward his happiness hypothesis. It's about ideas discovered throughout civilizations and things that may have led to human flourishing. Jonathon Haidt, great author, great book. We loved it. That's why we wrote a 5-part reflection for it. This one is part 4. So it's the reflection title. This one is Disgust, when you might be on to a new core value to explore. Honestly, in retrospect, I can't believe it took me this long in this journey to figure this out, but I did. And that was when I was writing this reflection and when I was, kind of going through this stage of it. Like, I remember reading when I first read The Happiness Hypothesis, the chapter on disgust was, for me, eye-opening. Do you remember that section of the book when he talks about how disgust has influenced culture and humanity throughout civilizations, throughout antiquity? I mean, like, it's stuff that like naturally disgusts us. We end up building cultures around and rules and norms around things like religions, and you shouldn't eat meat at certain places. These things are like bacterial infections and stuff like that. There's a lot of rules that were put in place around society because of things that were discussed. I mean, a lot of cultural things have been built throughout antiquity based off of, that feeling of disgust. And as I was, kind of, going through that section of the book, it was interesting. I felt like I learned something from it, but then as it marinated and sat longer with me over time, I think I started to understand this concept a little bit better. And obviously this whole journey is about, values, purpose, and overcoming loss to find happiness in my own life and how that extrapolates out into what you and I do together. So for me, this is where this reflection comes in around discuss and when you may be onto a new core value. So one of the things that we discovered really early on in this whole journey, it was a big light bulb moment, is, there's just nothing more natural and easy to a beaver must dam, right? Let's just call it a beaver must dam conversation. When you're doing something that just naturally aligns to how you feel and brings this energy and emotions out of you, and your elephant can go flourish and romp around in the baths and the fields and whatever, and just like do its elephant thing. And there's just something magical about that, right? Those are the activities that we all need to look for that equate to a beaver must dam, right? Because whatever you're doing, for whatever reason, your elephant just really loves it. That's an element and an activity you should be looking into through reflective writing or thought or meditation, or however you want to think through these things and try to get the stuff out of you, to really diagnose the source code as to, okay, why do I feel this way when I, for instance, play tennis, right? So tennis is something that my elephant just loves. I was playing it earlier today, and it always never ceases to fail me how easy it is for me to slip into a flow state playing tennis, and all the questions and curiosities that jump into my head as I'm playing a match or playing with a friend, or I'm trying out a new shot, or I'm trying to keep my shit together in a match, because I'm yelling at myself and I'm, balancing, being happy, but at the same time wanting to push and challenge myself and be hard, and endure and not quitting. But all these things are going on in my head in the middle of a match, and it just, for whatever reason, it just makes me come alive. And for me, as I look into that side of the tennis equation and the activities that a beaver must dam activity, where it just naturally aligns to everything, you can really start to unpack the source code of a lot of those, why those emotions are bringing that out in your elephant. So for me, I unpacked, through a lot of reflection and writing, the things that I love about tennis would be, it's challenging, it's learning, it's humility, it's not doing it alone because I'm always with an opponent, and they're a friend and a foe at the same time. It's playing and just having fun and being outside. It's enduring, and when you want to quit, but knowing that this is something that really does align and keep pushing, and balance and all these things. So like an activity that I love, elephant's happy, identify the source code and the why behind it all, and you get these great values out of it, right? Like that's boom, done. So for me and for you, I think, for both of us in this journey, that was kind of where the basis of where we started this whole journey. Let's do the stuff we love to do. Let's figure out why we love to do it. And then let's help other people to do that together and form an ecosystem around all that stuff. And then that's clubbing, right? But this book, as it marinated slowly over time, I started to have some activities that would spring up in my life where I would go, I get that weird pit. You ever get that weird pit feeling in the pit in your stomach, where you're just like, something doesn't feel right, where you're like, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but something that I just did felt weird. It didn't feel like, I don't know if it was good. I don't know if it was bad, but it didn't feel right. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? So that kept happening to me about midway through this journey. And I first started, I would go back and do what I always had done, which is let me go run this through my core values filter and figure out, does it violate my values? Does it violate my mission? Does it violate my purpose? And every single time I would go, no, 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 no. And I'm like, well, then why do I still have this fucking feeling? It's like, why do I still feel like something is missing? It's not a good feeling. I was like, what is this? So I kept thinking about it, and I went back to this concept of disgust. And there were certain things that I was doing as I started to unpack it that I was like, I think that just disgusts me. Like, I don't know why I did that. That just, I felt disgusted by myself, almost in a little bit of ways. And for instance, we'll go back to the tennis analogy. All those great things that I just talked about in tennis, there's sometimes when I never ever try to make my opponent feel bad ever. I don't care if I'm beating them or losing to them ever. I would never do that, like, ever. And if I did, it would be completely purely accidental. But sometimes, like when I'm in a tight match, the stress is ratcheted up, and there's a really close call, like on a line call or something like that, where it's questionable. Like, was that in? Was that out? I don't know. And I called it out in the heat of the moment. I called it out or something like that. And then as I start to think about it, I'm like, was that out? Why did I call that in? I don't know. And now I'm starting to question my own self. By the end of the match, that's all I can think about. I'm like, did I call that ball out when it should have been in? I feel bad. I honestly, I feel disgusted by myself. Then I'll go look through my core values and my mission and my purpose, and I'll be like, what does this why do I feel like this? Like, I don't know. Like, and like, it doesn't violate any of these things. And I'm like, what is this fucking feeling? So I kept like, thinking about this and thinking about this. When you're on this side of the polarity of the good side of everything, it's easy, right? But you can also find values in the polarity on the other side, right? And the bad side, the shit that disgusts you. So as I started to unpack this even more, I started to realize, I added a new core value to my list 3/4 of the way through this journey. It was called integrity. It officially made it on from the trying it out list into my core values list of, like, I don't like that feeling of disgust when I feel like maybe I just lied to somebody, and I didn't mean to. It wasn't intentional. Like, my elephant just did it. And now I'm like, I kind of am disgusted with myself. My writer is like, I'm disgusted with you, writer. My writer is like, I'm disgusted with you, elephant. And like, that was why I added integrity into my core values list, because there's just certain things that maybe don't technically violate any of my values or my purpose or my mission, but also at the same time, it doesn't feel right. There's something that doesn't sit well, So like, that's where integrity came into play, and that's why the title is called, Disgust. When you may be onto a new core values. The moral of the story is when you're looking for understanding your values and you're understanding your elephant better, there's emotions on both sides of the spectrum. There's emotions on the good side, there's emotions on the bad side, and everything in between. So like, don't discard bad feeling emotions, like, because there could be really valuable values that can be unearthed there that you can leverage to help keep you on the path that you want to be on towards your own meaningful work and meaningful relationships. So yeah, I'll pause there. Love to get your thoughts.
Right. So I think you hit it on the head when saying this is the Beaver dam discussion.
Yeah.
And like, to me, like, we have a set of core values, and we don't know what it is until we explore and discover. And you say, well, I have this 5 core values, and I'm feeling this disgust. I look through all my 4 or 5 core values, and it doesn't violate any of them, but I still feel disgust. That means
Right.
you're missing one core, at least one
Missing
more core
something.
value that's
Right.
supposed to be on the list that you violated. So
Right.
when you violate your core value, you will feel the disgust,
Exactly.
right? Because you may have 10, right? And you say, I only know 5. So you say, hey, 5 is what I'm using as my compass. But then I feel disgust, but it doesn't violate any of the 5. It's because something else, some other values is missing from that list.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, it's like, if I'm a beaver, right? I like water, but you asked me to put my hand into some kind of an ant mound or whatever.
Right.
It doesn't violate any of the core values per se. Let's say water, location,
Right.
having the wood to chop down at my dam. But when I put my paw into the ant mound, right? It's not gonna feel good. It's gonna feel
Right.
disgusting because I'm gonna get my hand 1,000 times but the ant. So
Shouldn't be
stuff
there.
like that. It say, well, the values that I think I know, it doesn't violate that, but that means doesn't mean I can do the other stuff. That means that the other core value is still missing. So anytime that you have, because essentially, like you were saying, if you're playing tennis and you never want to make the other person feel bad because that's the way you play, and you constantly say, well, is it out? You start immediately to feel remorse.
Oh, immediately, immediately. I mean, it's like I almost want to just stop the point and go, you know what? You can have that point. Well, that's not true. You can do it in tennis. It just is never done where you're like 2 points down the road and you're like, you know what? That was your point. I've never seen that happen ever in my tennis playing career, but I almost want to make that a thing, because it's like I don't care enough, even if it's a competitive league match or something like that. Like, I don't care enough about that to violate that. You know what I mean? Where I walk away from that interaction with this person and they go, man, Chris is a cheater. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he may have beat me. He's good. He's like a nice guy, but like,
I mean, the matter of fact is that you have a core values that want to be true to, meaning even if the other person didn't think that you're a cheater, you don't want to even have give any evidence that you're a cheater.
right.
So I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I mean, it doesn't matter the outcome of the game or anything like that. It's just that particular shot. Even if you lost the match, but you gain that point, you still feel remorse because it violates your integrity core value. You're focusing on the remorse other than playing tennis. You won't
You want to
you
know
won't
what
have feeling.
you want to know what happens when this happens? For the next 2 games, I almost unconsciously dump the games to get. I mean, I don't want to win these next points. I end up losing games a lot if this scenario ever plays out. It's probably almost an unconscious thing where my elephant can't even. It's almost like I want to hit it into the net or make errors all over the place because I'm like, look, that was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's like my elephant like can't even think about doing other stuff anymore. It's like that's all it fixated on. And I mean, it happens almost
Exactly.
every time.
I mean, that's exactly what remorse does. It tells you, hey, I did something that is violating against my values, and you are going to be completely like taken away by that. All your focus is pay attention to the remorse feeling, and you can't shake it. You just can't shake the feeling of, this is something, it is not me. I did something that is not me. And you completely being led away from focusing on your game. And a lot of times you're going to throw away the game, you're going to do things, and your thinking is completely yanked, right?
Yeah.
But your
My
focus and attention.
rider's full on like in control of my elephant at that point in time. And the rider's like, come on, man. Come on. Like what
No, I think it's the elephant that does that. That's most of it. Because
no. The elephant gives you the emotion.
the elephant is the one that outbursts, right? Because it instinctively knows that. But it's also so what because the thing is the elephant is what you cannot control. You cannot control the elephant at all. So let's say the elephant outbursts something, and then the rider says, "Hey, look, elephant, you outburst. That was not you." And then I would say, "Oh yeah, you're right. Fuck, I did something wrong." And so the elephant is starting to doubt itself. That's why it couldn't focus,
That's
right?
True. That's true.
So the attention, so the rider say, "Okay, that's okay. We live and we learn. Let's move back." The elephant couldn't. So the thing is, in the remorse phase, you can't really control your emotions.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do, for whatever amount of period that you go through, sometimes, a couple hours, sometimes, it's a day, sometimes it's a week, depending on how your elephant is processing it. Like I said, you can't control the feeling of remorse. When you did something that you know was bad, right?
Yeah.
You have this remorse feeling and you can't shake it. That means that the writer has no control.
Yeah.
Has no control over it because the elephant realizes it did something wrong, right? Then it's going to sit there and it's going to process that. And sometimes it take hours, sometimes it take weeks, depending on the elephant character, and also depending on the kind of remorse that it thinks it needs to do.
Right.
So the more impactful the event, the longer the remorse period.
For sure. I mean, there's a story that we'll do in the future because as I added integrity to my core values around this time of the journey, it was probably a few months after this where I was playing in an industrial league match that I do on Saturday mornings, and I was in a really close match with this guy. These are like weird timed matches, so you play for an hour and a half. They're not like full sets. You just play as many games as you can during the time, and then whoever's up by more than a break or on serve. If you're on serve, you tie. If you're up a break, or beyond, you win. That's how it's scored on these things. And I had started off this match up, I think it was up like 8-1, which is like in these kind of matches, that's almost like insurmountable. Like, I mean, you can't even come back from it, right? Like, but I also knew maybe it was like 8-2, but I also knew it was the guy that I was playing, he was good. And I was like, he was really just missing a lot of shots. And I was like, if he starts to get his shit together, I mean, I was like, this could easily flip, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later after that, at that point in time, I found myself it was 8-7 now, in the match. And we only had like, I don't know, 20 minutes left of this timed match. And it was 30-40. So meaning I was down in a service game. So I was down 30-40. So if he won the next point, he would break serve and we would be tied. And the ball, he had a really close shot down the line. I called it out because I thought it was out, but it was really close. But that one, and I was like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure about it, to be honest with you. But like, I mean, from where I saw it, I was like, I thought it was out, but we don't have like, eagle eye court vision, shit on these courts. But like, I mean, if he was staring right down the line, it may have been in. I don't know, and I felt awful because I ended up winning that game. So now I was up 9-7, and then I won the next 3 games and I ended up winning 12-7. But like, that was a hugely pivotal point in that match. Like, if he would have won that point, we would have been tied. He would have completed his comeback, and now we would have been back to even with a few, and I could not get that out of my head the rest of the entire match. So much so that this is where the integrity core value comes into play. This is why I was so glad that I've added this into my core values going forward. Because after that match, I couldn't get out of my head. I drove home from the match and I was like, man, that sucked. I felt really bad. I was like, that was a really fun match. The guy was playing well and he's a good guy. I don't want to be like that, and I couldn't get out of my head. I made breakfast when I got back home because it was like an early Saturday morning. I was eating, like a brunch with my wife and Luca. I'm just sitting there in my chair and I could not get it out of my head. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care. This guy had exchanged numbers with me. I'd never met him before. This guy had exchanged numbers with me after that match. He was like, man, you're really good. I'd love to play you sometime. I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's get together or whatever. So I ended up texting him like 3 hours after this match was over. And I was like, man, I'm so sorry about that call. I feel really, really bad. Like, that was a pivotal point in the match. I can't stop thinking about it. And he immediately responded. He's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. He was like, it was probably out. I don't know. I have bad eyesight. Anyway, I felt relieved. I felt purged.
Right, because
like,
you satisfy that core value. The core
Right.
value is, I want to be clear on where we stand, regardless of what happened. We won or you lost, but you let another person know that this is where I stand, and I don't want you to have any kind of miscommunication or misbelief in what you say. That's part of the integrity core value. To me, it may not be anything. That's the way that you behave, right? Because it doesn't really matter whether it's advantageous or disadvantageous and like that. It's just, for me, it's probably gonna make me have a very nice, peaceful day, to be honorable and do the things I should be doing, and then to do the things that I need to do to compensate for the fact that I feel bad, right? And so for me, it takes so much energy to go against the principle or the core value that you have. I mean, it's not like I was born to this world and I say, well, for me, I think I will have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You don't get to do that. You just you've been given a certain set, whether whether that's something you want or you don't. You still have that set. It's just easier for you to allow that particular set of core values to express versus not. If you violate it, you're gonna have to contain it. It's like fire. When you light it up, it's going to start activate to burn. It's gonna. In order for you to not express it, you have to use energy and power to contain it. That takes a lot of energy. Being honest is a disadvantage because most people are not honest with you, and they use it to their advantage. They use it to put leverage on you. But at the same time, I mean, I know that it's not like I'm dumb that I don't know, but I don't really care because to me, it's not worth it.
Right.
It's not worth it to say, well, I'm not gonna let this person know how I think, how whatever. I tell you as I see it, and I don't hold anything. But at the same time, because I'm very honest, a lot of time whatever I know is I know a lot of it because I don't spend my time trying to cover up. So I have more time to focus on my skills and my art. Even if I tell you how to code, I can teach you everything how to code, but you can't out code me. You just can't. Like, just when you play tennis, right? You can say, this is how I do my backhand, this is how I do my forehand, this is how I do my serve, this is how I kind of defend the ground or whatever. You can give them all the secrets away, but no one can outperform you on the court because you are so good at focusing on the art versus trying to focus on containing. Let's say I'm gonna be this slight person. So you rely on these trick shots. And
Right.
so a lot of time, because if you do that, you don't have the time, because you basically have to split your time and attention to different things. So if you focus on doing something else, then there's time to focus on the art. Therefore, you need to rely on tricks to win. But if I don't rely on the art of, trying to, I guess, mislead my opponent, then they have to beat me the real way, which is, have to be better than me in my skills to beat me.
My weaknesses. Do that. Do this. Like, here, this is how you beat me. Go ahead and try that because it'll make me better. You know what I mean?
Because
Like,
then
I'm not
eventually
gonna crush
somebody's
you.
gonna find out. But it means
It's
that when they found out and I don't have enough skills to beat you in that, I'm gonna lose anyway, regardless.
right. Yeah, just earlier today, I was playing a tennis match against a friend of mine, and we were playing at the courts down the street from me. It's like a 2-minute walk from my house. Those courts also happen to be public courts, but they also happen to be where the local Catholic high school uses for their home courts because they don't have courts at their high school because they're small Catholic high schools. That's where they practice and that's where they play their home matches and stuff like that. I forgot that it's girls tennis season here in Indiana. They do the springtime, so they're just now kind of doing their warm-ups and practicing and things like that. Luckily, there's 8 courts down there, and they were only using like 6 of them or something like that. So my buddy and I were able to go, play while they were practicing and stuff. So we were playing right next to these girls that were practicing and doing drills and things like that. And there was you looked at like my friend and I when we were playing. People stop when they walk by in the park and they're like, "Man, you guys are really good at tennis," And then I like and that it's cool. Like, I mean, we are pretty good at tennis, and then I look over to the courts next to me and I'm watching these girls learn, and I had that exact thought today where I was like, I could walk over, they could watch us play the entire time, they could come over, they could ask me, how do you guys do it, how do you do this? And I watched them hit the ball, and I'm like, oh man, all I got to do is do this and this, and I want to go over there and like help them, but at the same time, I'm like, there's no way that I can actually get out of my head and a 2-minute conversation with this person of how to turn insanely, newbie like shots that they're hitting on the court next to me into anything that will resemble anything. We're playing a different game. Like, I mean, literally, it's like a full different game. And like the ATP level tennis players, they're playing a full different game than my friend and I are playing. You know what I mean? And like, it's to your point, like I could walk up to Novak Djokovic and I could say, teach me all the secrets of what you do, and it would still take me probably 5 years to even unlock one of those little secrets and actually be able to apply it into my life. These are things that just they're hard fought on the battlefield, right? I mean, you just got to go live life and figure it out and do the stuff that you really like to do and avoid the shit that really makes you feel like shit.
So it reminds me of the saying that Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the guy who practiced 1,000 kicks once. I fear the guy who practiced one kick 1,000 times.
That's true.
So that's the thing is, I mean, you can teach, you can give your opponents any secrets, any tricks. They cannot beat you because the elephant isn't trained. I mean, you cannot do it. So that means that's what I'm saying is, when you have the time, right? So you have this time frame, you can say, well, I'm going to learn 1,000 kicks. Because you're greedy, but you're strategic, right? I have so many tricks. I have 1,000 fucking kicks. But the thing is, you can't execute any of them. That's the and Bruce Lee say, I don't fear the guy that learns 1,000 kicks. I fear the guy who learned one kick 1,000 times, right? So that is the elephant who's trained. So that's the beauty of having the ability to use your time in a laser focused manner. When you don't have to worry about containing your core values, it allows you the time to focus on your art. But if you are violating your core value, you have this inflamed bursting of disgust or whatever feeling, and that feeling is going to start to absorb the energy from your surrounding, and you have to contain it. It takes energy to contain it, and it's still because it's violating that core values. It's going to suck the energy out. Like I told you, you can't really tell your elephant, say, hey, don't think about this remorse anymore. For the next hour or so, your mind is completely drowned in that thought of remorse. You don't focus on playing tennis anymore. So basically, it sucks it away regardless of whether you want to or not. So that's what I'm saying is that time has been taken away from your focus on your art. So that means that in all of us, we have a very, I guess, time trade, time exchange. You have to exchange your time for something. But if you allow your core values to express itself, it doesn't suck the energy. It doesn't suck the attention. It let you
Right.
be who you're supposed to be. Therefore, whatever you do, your time is there, your focus, your attention, your time is focused on that one thing, the laser focus attention. That's the beauty of having the ability. If I have, well, for whatever reason, I have the gene that makes me want to be honest and have integrity. And if I were to be that, then it takes zero energy. But if I were to not be it, it takes energy to lie, to pretend, and to keep my story straight. Right. And that takes the energy itself. So what other energy, what other capacity in terms of the attention and the time for me to focus on doing whatever that's what I'm doing? I don't have that time. So my skill isn't any good because my elephant isn't training as much as I should be training.
Right. Agreed.
So that's what I'm saying. You have to let your emotion be the guide to say, okay, is this a core values that I'm missing from my tool belt that I'm supposed to have that I didn't discover yet, I didn't realize yet? Because you cannot ignore something. You say, well, I have my core values already. Well, the thing is, how do you know it's 5?
Right.
How do you know it's 8? Right?
Right.
So there may be a situation where you may have more than that, and when you discover them, and that you have to listen to the emotion. The emotion is telling you something because it is violating it, because there's certain
It's a
core
signal.
values that you and I, we don't give a shit.
Signal, right? Like we talked about. You turn the TV on, make sure it's on the right channel, see what it's saying. When I was giving that example of the sentence, this concept of the elephant in the rider, the more that we talk about it, I feel like this might be one of the things that we mention most throughout this entire journey. You think of like Daniel Kahneman and Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, or System 1, System 2, or whatever he wants to call it. In the book, The Inner Game of Tennis, they call it System 2 and System 1, where they flip it, where System 2 is like your automatic system, and your System 1 is your rider, well, whatever. Either way, for whatever reason, this analogy has always, made it easier for me to visualize, because that elephant is this big old beast that it's big. It does what it wants to do. Like, you cannot tell an elephant. We can't, as a human, tell an elephant what to do. What are you talking about, man? You better stab me and kill me and shoot me 50 times if you want me to stop doing whatever I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? And like an elephant, every time you go in front of an elephant, I don't know if you ever go to a zoo or anything like that, but like anytime that I'm ever, in front of an actual living elephant, just the sheer magnitude of like, when you see that damn thing and you're just like, shit, you're like, how would I like, get that thing to do anything? When I think of an elephant, I'm like, it is gonna do what it's gonna do. Elephants are smart and they can be tamed.
But
And
the
you
thing
can
is, you have to
cooperate.
speak the right language.
Right, exactly. Right.
Elephant whisperer.
Right.
You can't really, like I said, you can't talk to an elephant as if you talk to another person.
Exactly.
It doesn't know
You
what
gotta
you're
listen
saying.
very closely, and then you gotta work together to figure out, what that elephant's trying to say, and then make sure
I
that you
mean,
guys are both going in the right direction.
it's very fitting in the way we think of the elephant as a rider, very similar to what we see as the System 1 and System 2, because the elephant and the rider is very, I guess, personified object, right? Like, because the thing is, the rider in itself has many characteristics that is given by the sheer fact that it is a rider, right?
Right.
When they say this is a rider, well, tell me about the rider is a person who can think, who has free will, who has control. And then you say, well, if I say think about System 2, well, there's nothing comes to mind when you say, well, tell me about System 2. It's only you can only tell me what I told you what System 2 does.
Right.
You can't tell me what. That's why whenever we have the elephant and rider, because there are more of the characteristic of the rider inherent to that rider and elephant that fits the concept of System 1 and System 2, because we know about elephant, how big it is compared to the rider, right? And how it does things that can be tamed and cannot be tamed. But when you talk about System 1, System 2, can you tell me the relative size of System 1 versus System 2? Nothing comes to mind unless I tell you.
It's a lot to a little, right?
System 1 is just a label that's foreign to it, which is basically put a label on it.
Right.
But in this scenario, we basically borrow an existing knowledge, existing concept, to represent,
Well,
to
we can
label
visualize it.
something.
We think in pictures. We think in
Right, because
stories.
like
Yeah,
the thing is, when I ask you about an elephant, right? There's so much you can pinpoint on elephant. Well, the elephant
they're
has
huge.
tusks. It has tusks, right?
Right.
It has this snout. It has this ears, and it's huge. And you have the rider. You can visualize. You have a very direct connection. Your brain's actually engaged in that picture. But when I told you about system one, system two, all you know about that foreign label is whatever I tell you, and even then, it doesn't stick. So your brain can't hold on to it. It can't hold on to that image.
I mean,
There's
you
no
remember?
image to hold on to.
Do you remember the book we just recently did, The Elephant Whisperer? The actual book, The Elephant Whisperer. To figure out how to get elephants to cooperate with you, is you have to really think about it. I mean, you have to really slowly approach it. You have to understand their world. You have to understand everything that they're experiencing, thinking, feeling, going through all this stuff. For a human being to get an elephant to do anything that you wanted it to do, not necessarily saying that you're like manipulating it, but to cooperate with that elephant. Like, they give no fucks about cooperating with a human being unless you can really understand them, because they're like, what am I going to cooperate with you for? Like, what can you do for me? I'm 12,000 pounds, can fling trees around. I can talk 400 miles away through my grumbles. I'm a pretty fucking smart thing. You know what I mean? Like, and like, and then they got this little tiny human being next to them, and they're like, like, and they're going, as a human being, you're like, you have to problem solve that elephant. Like, I mean, really, that's the truth of the matter. Is like, you can't manhandle it. You can't just force it to do stuff. Like, it's gonna do what it's gonna do unless you start to really think about, what does that elephant need right now? What does it need to hear, and why does it need to hear for you to get them to cooperate with you to do anything? Which is exactly what I'm talking about with like this tennis example. Like, my elephant was like throwing a temper tantrum, and I was like, why are you throwing a temper tantrum? Like, what happened? We were having fun. We were doing things that I thought we loved, and all of a sudden now you're throwing a temper tantrum, elephant. I'm sitting there going, I got to really think about this one. You know what I mean? Like, all right.
Why? There's something spooky. Huh?
Right. Yeah. Like,
what is it that I need to be paying attention to? So it's a signal to the rider to
right.
pay attention and figure out what's the root cause of this spook. Because you can't force elephant to do anything.
Right.
You cannot force elephant. Like I say, if you're in the remorse state, you cannot tell yourself, don't feel remorse. It's not possible.
Exactly.
Hey, I'm spooked. I'm scared. I'm gonna behave instinctively what I should be doing. There's nothing you can do to say, hey, don't be spooked.
Actually, that book, The Elephant Whisperer, was really interesting because those elephants that they inherited were spooked. The reason they were given to him is they kept breaking out of their containment. That containment they were breaking out of was electric wired fence. They figured out how to turn off the wiring, break down the poles, and they kept breaking it over and over again. And it was costing the other owner a fortune, and they were going on the loose and causing a wreck, and they were doing all this stuff for a reason, right? Like, but that's why when the Elephant Whisperer, the guy, when he got him, like, he had to literally go make amends with the matriarch of the family. He had to go build trust with them. He had to go understand what all happened and why she's so protective of all these people, because one of them got killed, by one of these fucking poachers. Piece it all together and think through, like, okay, now that I understand where you guys are coming from, we can work through this. Do you want to work through this? And then eventually got him to agree to him, and then they ended up living a great life together and wrote a book about it. I can't give you a better example than that of exactly what we're talking about. They will destroy shit. They will flee. They will run. And when I say they, you will have these crazy emotions that are going on inside of you, whether good or bad. We just talked about this yesterday with the poker playing thing, right? My elephant was in hog heaven, a lot of times when I was doing that, but also, and so, for some reason, felt like shit at the same time too. And like, I couldn't figure that out. Like, that is why I stopped playing poker. I didn't know it then. I know it now as we're talking about this stuff. For whatever reason, it brought out every negative emotion in me, and it brought out every positive emotion. And it was confusing as hell. It's like, well, I really like this, but I really feel awful after every time that I perform this. You know what I mean? And I couldn't reconcile those two things. So
that means that some of the core values is being satisfied, and some core value that is being violated. But that's what I'm saying is, having the elephant and the rider, it is so much more impactful in terms of our leverage of the concept of the elephant and the rider. It has so much more than just system one, system two, and the relationship between the two. That's why I think this book, even though it has less of I guess, facts and evidence, than thinking fast and slow, but it has more of a connection
Mhm.
between what we see and how we can extrapolate the simple, because the elephant is a symbol of system one, this powerful subconscious of your brain, and the rider is the conscious portion of it and the smaller part of your brain, because it doesn't have as much of a capacity to think as a system one. The subconscious does it so fast. It's super fast. It's faster than the supercomputers. And so
Right.
I think having this book, a lot of times, it's the same concept, but it allows us to elevate from the Beaver must dam level of explanation to the second level, which is
Right. Right.
the rider and elephant whisperer. I think this book is very impactful in terms of bridging our understanding
Mhm.
of values that we're given when we were born, the certain set of genes that we need to express. And that kind of give us more directions in terms of what we should do for our lives. And I
Right.
think the most impactful thing you can do is having a knowledge that can be applicable.
Right. It's the profoundly simple idea of this whole journey. Focus on your values and do your best to bring those to life through your actions. Like that's it. Focus on your elephant and do your best to make sure that you put your elephant in situations where it can thrive. You have to focus on your elephant. You have to spend time, you have to think, you have to understand it. You have to be 100% in tune with your elephant at all times in life. That's the profoundly simple concept of all this stuff. You have to know your elephant inside and out, focus on your elephant, and you will find your values together. And then that's your common language you can communicate with your values. That's why the profoundly simple idea is focus on your values. It's the language that your writer can speak.
It's the most implementable actions.
Right.
Because if you talk about system one, system two, it's hard to implement, because okay, I know what it is, but how do I even go about trying to train system two? I mean, you can't. But if
I don't
you
think you
think
can. I mean, it's like, how are you supposed to know when you're being, primed? Like that's the whole point of priming. You're like, you either do it to somebody or you're having it done to you if it's happening. How are you supposed to know? You're not supposed to know you're being primed. Like nobody goes, oh yeah, I was just primed right there. Like I mean, like like I mean, if you
But
can do,
I think if you understand this concept well, you will recognize it. Because remember one time you mentioned to me about the guy who watched enough tennis that will be able to predict, like, hey, he's gonna fault on this serve or whatever,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because he has been trained, his elephant has been trained, and he can
Mhm.
see it with a certain slightest of different, whatever he sees, the input that he sees, he's going to predict the ability to say, well, he's gonna fault this one or fault that one or whatever. And so I think having the ability to train your elephant, having to train your system too, it's possible. It's just about, like I said, you fear the guy who practiced one kick 1,000 times.
Right. What you were talking about was in this book, Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. This
This
is
is the
about being
elephant
an
train.
elephant. Yeah, this is just a book about saying, hey, this is how powerful your elephant is. Like, there is no like, how to fix all this. Like, it's just like, this is a book about like, this is how it works. You do more things in a blink of an eye. You have no idea what's going on. Like this is your elephant. This whole book, like you just said, system one, system two. There's so many books we've read on this journey. Nudge, I mean, like happiness hypothesis.
You're talking about the book, The Atomic Habits. It's
Atomic.
because if we have this elephant in the rider, you can actually train yourself to become an elephant whisperer. And once you become an elephant whisperer, you can be an elephant trainer. You can train your elephant to blink, which is to the power of thinking while thinking. So think about it. You have to understand that elephant is this humongous thing, right? So if you have a dog, for example, how do you train a dog?
Slowly over time, and you listen to it and you see what it does.
The thing is, this is how you train a dog. Okay, I don't know. I'm just going to try and explain my transition from being a dog trainer to an elephant trainer. So
Right.
a dog trainer, what you do is, let's say you wanted to sit. What do? You hold up the piece of treat because he wants a treat.
Right.
You have to give him something he wants. You hold it up so that you lift the piece of treat all until his nose and lift it all the way up until he in the sitting position. You see what I'm saying? So I
Right.
am using what he wants trying to get him to sit without he knowing he's sitting.
Right.
Right. And so as a dog trainer, you have to use something that he wants to allow him to transition into a position that you want to say sit, and then you label that sit, and you keep doing that until, but you have to make sure you can't just say sit and then trying to force him to sit down. I guarantee you he doesn't know, right? But if you put the piece of treat up into his nose and you put him up until because he has to put his nose following your treat. He's gonna put his nose out. His butt has to go down.
Right.
And then once he's in the position, you label sit, right? So you think about a dog. For you and a dog is much smaller than you. You can force a dog, or if he does something bad, you can smack it, right? I'm going to transition to the elephant trainer. You cannot actually spank the elephant and say, hey, no, you can't do that. So the only way for you to train an elephant is to figure out what he wants and use that as a transition.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To make him say, hey, okay, you do this, and then you label it, and eventually you do that enough time, he's gonna recognize it, and he's gonna see the things that you want, and basically you can command and say, hey, okay, and you can communicate with the elephant using these labels.
You just had a truism there, I'm gonna document it for you. Well, I do like that one. But I was gonna say, you train your elephant with values,
Right. You have to train your elephant with a value it knows. You cannot introduce something foreign to it. You have to transition it. So you have to imagine having your elephant, right? But that means that your system one, your subconscious, your instinct can be trained per the rider, per the system one. That means that you can train it. A perfect example of this is the book Atomic Habits. Essentially borrowing a habit you already had to piggyback to get you new habits. This is exactly how you train your subconscious. This is exactly how you train an elephant. But the thing is, when you train an elephant who is like 5 times bigger than you can't actually use force. You have to use the value that it holds already, and use that value to transition. Same thing with your habit, right? Your subconscious. You cannot spank it. You can say, hey, smack it and say, hey, right? It doesn't understand you. I mean, because it's so big and it's so powerful, it doesn't understand what you're saying. You can't spank it, so you have to use a value. That's why, like I say, the Atomic Habit is actually a practical example of how to train your subconscious, how to train your quote unquote elephant.
Except the whole idea of purpose, of why you do it. But yes, tactically speaking,
it attaches to the concept of
borrowing
an existing concept that it knows. Right. So in the Atomic Habit, it borrows your habits. Okay.
Right.
But I'm saying is using the same concept in the subconscious. The subconscious has a certain instinct already. It has already an innate instinct. Use that instinct to piggyback, to transition over to new habits, to new core values, to the new integrity, to new whatever that you think is part of you need to be, right? So basically, the Atomic Habit is an example of how to put into practice, how to train this subconscious, this ultimate submerged iceberg.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's a great place to stop. I just wrote you a Slack message saying we should write a book called How to Train Your Elephant. Put all this together into a document of how to train your elephant, But no, I love that. All right, fun conversation as always. Any final thoughts? Don't spank your elephant. The question we can leave for everybody is, what activities naturally make you have that disgusting feeling, and what values are they guiding you toward? Listen to your elephant is basically what we're trying to say is, what's your elephant telling you? Listen to it. Listen to your damn elephant, and then figure it out, and then use it, communicate with it, and then train it. Find that common language. Common language is values, and then use those values to train it. It's like the treats, like True saying for a dog. Love it. That's a great lesson, good reminder, and I feel purged.
Lesson. I'm constantly trying to reprogram my subconscious, and the elephant and the rider fits perfectly into this paradigm.
Agreed. Yeah, I love it. It's a great book. That's why it's a great book. It's why one of the top 5 favorites. So thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you all on Monday.
Good night.